Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we are setting sail across the Sea of Galilee to witness one of the most intense and awe-inspiring moments in the life of Jesus. We often face storms in our own lives, moments when the winds of change blow too hard, and the waves of anxiety threaten to sink our boat. Have you ever felt like you were in the middle of a crisis and wondered, does anyone even care? If so, today's story is specifically for you. We are looking at a night where the elements of nature collided with the peace of the Creator. Before we head into the eye of the storm, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us share these ancient stories of courage and faith with the world. Are you ready? Let's step onto the boat and see what happens when the wind meets its master. The story, found in the 4th chapter of the Gospel of Mark, begins at the end of a long, exhausting day. Jesus had been teaching the crowds by the seaside for hours. As evening fell, he turned to his disciples and said, "Let us go over to the other side." This was a simple command, but it set the stage for a life-changing test. The disciples, many of whom were professional fishermen who grew up on these waters, climbed into the boat. They knew the Sea of Galilee like the back of their hands. They felt safe. They felt in control. But the Sea of Galilee is famous for its sudden, violent storms. Because it sits in a basin surrounded by mountains, cool air can suddenly sweep down from the heights and collide with the warm, moist air over the water, creating a literal cauldron of waves. That night, a furious squall came up. This wasn't just a bit of rain. The Greek text implies a hurricane-force wind. The waves were breaking over the boat, and it was nearly swamped. Now imagine the scene: the darkness of the night, the deafening roar of the wind, the stinging spray of the salt water, and the boat rocking violently, filling with water. These were expert sailors, and yet they were terrified. They were doing everything they could bailing out water, fighting the rudder, but they were losing. They were convinced that this was the end. And where was Jesus? In the middle of this chaos, the gospel tells us something incredible. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. Think about the contrast here. The disciples are screaming in terror, fighting for their lives, while Jesus is in a deep, peaceful sleep. The storm was outside of him, but it wasn't inside of him. This contrast drove the disciples to a breaking point. They woke him up and asked a question that almost every human has whispered to the heavens at some point in their life. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" It's a question of the heart. They weren't just asking for help. They were questioning his love. How can you sleep while we are dying? Do we even matter to you? Jesus stood up. He didn't start bailing out water. He didn't grab an oar. He didn't even rebuke the disciples for waking him. Instead, he looked at the screaming wind and the crashing waves, and he spoke to them as if they were a rowdy child or a wild animal. He said, "Peace, be still." In the original Greek, it literally means, "Hush, be muzzled." And then the impossible happened. The Bible says the wind died down, and it was completely calm. In an instant, the roaring chaos turned into a glass-like mirror. The silence must have been even more terrifying than the storm. Jesus then turned to his disciples and asked 2 piercing questions. Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? He wasn't criticizing them for being human. He was inviting them to realize who was in the boat with them. If the Creator of the universe is in your boat, does it matter how big the waves are? The disciples' reaction is the most telling part of the story. They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this?" Even the wind and the waves obey him. They had seen him heal the sick. They had heard him teach with authority, but this was different. This was a demonstration of authority over the very fabric of creation. They realized they weren't just following a teacher. They were in the presence of the one who set the boundaries of the sea. As we look at this story today, we have to ask, what are the storms in our lives? Sometimes it's a financial crisis, a health scare, or a relationship falling apart. In those moments, It often feels like Jesus is asleep. We feel like our prayers are hitting a ceiling, and we cry out, "Don't you care?" But the message of Mark 4 is that the presence of Jesus does not mean the absence of the storm. It means the presence of peace during the storm. Jesus was able to sleep because he knew who held the world in his hands. He wants us to have that same peace. He wants us to realize that no storm is too loud for his voice. This miracle also teaches us about the power of words. With just 3 words, Jesus restored order to chaos. It reminds us that there is a power available to us through faith that can calm the internal storms of fear and anxiety. We might not be able to stop the rain outside, but through him, we can find a great calm inside. The Sea of Galilee is still there today, and the storms still come. But for those who know this story, the lake is a monument to a single night when the wind met its master. It reminds us that we are never alone in our boat. Whether the water is smooth or the waves are swamping us, the one who can muzzle the hurricane is sitting right there in the stern. Dear friends, we have reached the end of this dramatic journey across the sea. What storm are you facing right now? Does it help you to know that Jesus is in the boat with you, even when he seems silent? I would love to hear your thoughts and your personal stories of finding peace in difficult times. Please leave a comment below. I read them all, and our community here is a place of mutual support. If this story gave you a sense of peace today, please give this video a like and share it with someone who might be struggling through a storm of their own right now. Let's spread the message that there is a peace that surpasses all understanding. In our next episode, we're going to witness another incredible miracle, but this time it involves a massive crowd and a very small lunch. We'll be exploring the feeding of the 5,000. You won't want to miss how a few loaves and fishes became a feast for thousands. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thank you for sailing with us today and for seeking the deeper meaning in these ancient words. Stay peaceful, stay courageous, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care